Hey everybody, so this is a companion video to the one I did about Etherfields, and I showed off what it would look like if you painted with various types of paint, from Army Painter, from Turbo Dork, lots of different places, and a couple of the subscribers had said, hey, I would like to see more, and a little bit more step-by-step process to it, so that's this video. And I still had not painted the little boxes for the cards, and I thought that was a crying shame, and I wanted to make it look just like the rest of the content. As you can see on my masking tape little Lazy Susan, that's where I painted all the bronze stuff, so if you haven't watched that episode yet, that's kind of the paint scheme. You're going to have to lay down a primer no matter what you do, and Turbo Dork, which is the brand I will be using at the end, has on their little labels a description of what the undercoat should be. And for this one, which is Shifting Sands, it says it should be black. And in order to make it that way, you got to get a primer. So I chose to use Vallejo. It doesn't matter. Whatever works for your particular airbrush, or if you're going to use a rattle can, it doesn't really matter. Whatever you want to use, you use. I prefer to use the airbrush because they're water-based, it doesn't stink as much, and it's cheaper overall, and I can do it inside instead of having to do everything outside. A lot of folks, you have to use the rattle can because you don't have an airbrush. That's totally fine. If you do want to get yourself something, then you can go down to Harbor Freight for about $100 and get a little kit, and that would be great for your first airbrush. The main thing you're going to learn how to do is clean it out when it clogs, because just as much as you learn about how to paint with an airbrush, you learn how to unclog it, and that's pretty much where it all goes. And eventually you buy more and more stuff to keep it from getting clogged, and maybe you'll get better at painting. But you probably will. Definitely you'll get faster at painting. This is much faster than if you had done it with a brush, and it goes on much thinner, which allows you to maintain some of the detail. So what's different between primer and paint? Primer is more of like a latex, and when it goes on, it shrinks up and it bonds in a different way to the paint, and it provides a surface for the paint to stick to. If you just tried to spray over top with your regular paint, it may flake off, it may not stick, it may set in weird ways, it may pool in weird ways. So primer is what you need. Don't try to do this with just regular paint if it's not primer, because you'll have all those same problems. What are other problems you could have? If you do not wait long enough between your sprays, then you could get like a thumbprint on there because it hasn't dried yet. You can get all kinds of weird things to happen. With the airbrush booth that I have, there's an overhead LED light, and as you can see, it gets really shiny when the paint is wet. So one of the things you might need to do is wait a little bit more, blow air through it, just regular old air from as far away as makes sense, so that you don't get any little spider webs and that type of thing, and just let it dry. You will find that the shine looks a whole lot like the gray that is underneath the plastic, so it can be difficult to tell, and you're always going to miss a spot. So that's one of the reasons you're going to go through and do a couple of coats. And how long does it take to dry? About an hour is probably a safe amount of time, but it depends on temperature, humidity, all that kind of stuff. So what I'm doing here is giving you that explanation. I've got a bunch of these to go, so I think what I'm going to start doing here is ramping it up. You can see I'm spraying, I'm switching paint out, I'm doing other stuff, the types of things that you would expect, and just spinning it around as much as possible. I'm not wearing gloves because I plan on taking a shower after this. If you need to wear gloves, wear gloves. The thing about the acrylic, it is not toxic. The paint is never wanting to get into your lungs. I am using a respirator mask, and that's about as safe as I feel I have to go. But if there's any warning labels or anything on your equipment, you should follow all of those procedures. And definitely wear the mask, though, no matter what you're doing. Even if you're just gonna like clean it out and spray a little soap or something through it, then you don't know what's in that stuff, and once it's in your lungs, it's hard to get out. So yeah, don't do that. A couple things to note: there are magnets on top of this, and if you put too much distance, magnets, the power goes away according to the inverse square law. So the further it is away, it dissipates at a square instead of in a linear fashion from the distance. So you don't want to put too many layers of anything. because it will make it weaker, and even little bits on these tiny magnets can make a difference. I didn't seem to notice too much with just a little bit of paint, but I eventually ended up scraping the magnets down so that they would have a good connection. And that part is up to you. I wanted it to make it look like a bronze and something that was a little antiqued at the end, and you can make it look like whatever you want. To me, it felt like it was complete once the top and the bottom were on, so I didn't really worry about the shine from the magnets. Here we go into a little more turbo speed. Keep in mind I had a lot of these to do, and they're all going to get hit with the black. With the most models, I might do a zenithal prime. These ones, the zenithal is going to come from the shininess of the bronze paint that I'm going to put over top of it. So if I was going to do this in like a flat color, like a red or something like that, then I might go ahead and hit it with some white at a 30-degree angle and just give it a little bit of difference and contrast, and that'll help the red show up, and there'll still be some shadows and things underneath it from the parts that aren't covered by the 30-degree angle. But in this one, I think most of the covers of everything will be done pretty much flat with the metallics. They make their own shines. I do the insides and the outsides just because it makes me feel good to not see gray plastic, but if you are low on paint, low on time, or you just don't care, then you don't necessarily have to do the insides. It's the outsides that you see. But some people, they like to do every little thing. I like to do every little thing that is not going to be glued. If it's going to be glued, then I won't paint it, because then you're painting to the glue, you're not painting to the plastic, and I like to adhere to the plastic as opposed to paint. I just think it's a stronger bond. A chemist may disagree with me, but that's fine. If you're not a chemist, I don't care about your opinion. And there you go. Also, if you're not a subscriber, I don't care about your opinion either. So if you feel free to subscribe, and you'll see all the DIY Sundrop stuff that I did for Nemesis. I think it's the top video still for that. And the other DIY Etherfields, where it goes more into depth with paint selections and different options, the way they look, depending on the brand that you're going to use. But if you're not a subscriber, you're just wasting my time. So just keep it to yourself. Anyway, yeah, we're getting from piece to piece. One of the things about doing in a big batch like this is by the time the first one, by the time I get to the last one, the first one should be close to done drying. I think the entire time that I have this video in real time is like half an hour to do all 5 of these, and that's okay. I didn't wait for the paint to dry because I didn't want to have to do a bunch of different videos. I just wanted to do it all in real time and get it all done. But I would recommend for you, if you have the time, to just wait an hour or so and then come back to it. But you can see from what I've done here, it's going to stick pretty well and it'll be fine. And the reason why I say wait is, like I said before, the shininess of the LEDs. You might find some spaces when you switch to a different light source that you didn't get all the way through, but I managed to get pretty thorough. Oh, so here, let me slow this down. I'll back it up just 1 second. There we go. Time jump. Can't really tell, can you? See? So what I'm about to do here is show you the paint that I'm using, just so if you're out looking for something that I used. No, that's the primed one. That's the one that's just dried. All right, so I used a Vallejo surface primer. You can use anything you want. Badger's popular. They've got some other good ones. I've got a whole section on a carousel here. I've been wanting to try these AK ones that have been out of stock over at Lost Planet in Torrance, and that might be when next time I get some black. I've been using it for gray. It's been pretty good. So just to try something different. I never had a problem with Vallejo. Turbo Dork I also got from Lost Planet because that's where they have an account out in Torrance here in the Los Angeles County, and they are actually a California brand, so that's always cool because I'm local to them. It's good to shop local if you can, and just showing off that I use shifting stance. So if you want to do the exact same color I have, you can do that. There are a bunch of colors out there. Army Painter I looked at. There's some GW ones. There's all the different P3s and other things that you might like. You might even decide that what you want to do is mix brown paint with some pearlescent medium and see if you can get something out of that. You can do gloss black and then try to do some other type of stuff on top. Primers can go in different ways. This primer is more of a satin finish than anything else. So yeah, different colors do different things. That's up to you to decide how you want to make it happen. And I'm probably filling the airbrush full of full of shifting sands and flow improver. Flow improver is the magic sauce that makes everything happen. You want thin coats, and flow improver is what you think thinner is. Thinner is not what you think it is. Flow improver is what you really want when you think of thinner. So anyway, I loaded it up and just swirled it up as much as possible. And from a trick that I learned from watching YouTube videos, and the guy, I think his name is Bobby Boucher. I forget the guy's name. He does The Long War and a bunch of other interesting videos. He's changed his name a little bit, but he's got a studio where he does Warhammer stuff out in Hollywood every week, and he calls it the Hillbilly Backwash. And I don't think there should be any reason other than that to call it exactly what he uses it. And you just set the something. I use a little rubber cap in front of your airbrush and blow it back through, and that gets a nice job mixing. It'll also spray back through. If you happen to leave the cap on the top, it will shoot the cap up in the air, so you're gonna have to take the cap off the top and deal with the bubbles. Do it inside of your little area, your studio, like I've done. Now it may look a little white on your end, but it is in fact coming out bronze and shiny, and I'm getting it from all the different angles because I want it to look like it's actually made of the bronze. So you could, like I say, do it from a 30 degree with the zenithal and you get more blacks involved, but just the way the light's going to hit it naturally, I think that's okay. If you wanted to patina it, depending on the type of material you're using, if it had copper, then you could use stuff like, let me reach up here and grab it. I've used Citadel's Night Got Bloom. That worked out pretty well. And then there's some other types of greens from GW that worked out shockingly well to make a green patina. It makes it look like the Statue of Liberty does now. But you would do that over top of a lot of this stuff. And there might be various stages of patina that it's at. You can have little other rust streaks and things coming down. Just get a lot of water in the paint and then do some little trickles that pop out along seams and other things, so that where water would have collected, and you can have that effect. But I wanted this for Etherfields to be a dream where things don't necessarily rust, so I gave it all the goodies. If this comes out a little too shiny for you, that's okay too. I don't have to do it here, but you could, if you wanted to, get yourself some Nuln oil or some Army Painter dark tones, depending on how dark you want it to be, and you can spray just like you do here with that and get a nice thin coat, and that will bring the tone down a little bit. And then you can dry brush back on top with the same shifting sands or even a brighter color. One of the ones I might suggest, you can hear the paint falling in the background just because that's how I do things. Rune Lord Brass from Citadel is a little bit difficult to keep because it's a popular color, so it ends up running out at various stores. But it is a good one if you're going to use shifting sands to go back up, because it's slightly brighter if you shake it up well enough, and that will allow you to get more contrast. If you feel like you don't have enough, it's totally up to you. It's going to change colors slightly as it dries, so just keep that part in mind. Let's speed this up for a second. You're always going to have a little bit different color when everything dries out. So it's just the way the chemicals work. It's the way the paints mix together. Sometimes they'll mix with the primers if it's not completely dry. Sometimes they just off-gas the moisture that's in them, and they turn out to be a little bit different shade, less vibrant, or whatever the case may be. And I hit it on all angles. Again, you don't have to do it, even if you wanted to prime it all the way around just so you don't see any gray. And then you could hit the outsides with the metallic, that would be fine. But this is just my personal choice. One of the things about using the paint over top, because it's so thin, it dries really quickly, but you still don't want to trust it. You still want to wait before trying to paint over top of it for at least an hour. I pulled out some satin finish. That was one of the things that I chose to do. This is also going to adjust your color. This is a satin varnish, and you could use a high gloss. It's really just depends on where you want the final look to be, and thin it down if you want more of the color to shine through, because it will definitely affect the way that the light hits and disperses. So I just didn't want people's fingers to rub off the paint, and you want as thin of a coat as possible to make that happen. So there might be some cool effects from like wear that may happen with the fingers in weird places that could look kind of neat as things start to age. But I want it to start off with the best shot possible. If it's bouncing around in the box, I don't want to use the foam that it comes with, because it packs a little too tight, and then we'll start rubbing the paint off, and that's just not what I wanted. So that's everything, and you can go back, you can check out the other DIY Etherfield video that I did. As I said, I went through a bunch of different color options, and you can pick your favorites from there. This was just for the people that wanted to see it get painted. So here you go. If you also want to subscribe, you will get informed of all the Kickstarter board games and RPGs, keeping in mind that this game was originally a Kickstarter game, and it was covered just like a lot of other things were. I'm at the time of this recording at about 6,200 different campaign reviews, and so it's been a while. There's a lot of them. You can be caught up though, and make sure you don't miss out on any of the good stuff if that's what you're into. I do all the crowdsourcing, even the Game Found, where you will probably find the future Awakened Realm stuff. Other comments, anything like that, like I said, if you're subscribed, I'll pay attention. If you're not, probably won't. So anyway, have a good one.